Hello and welcome to Story to Satori. Today we have a guest. Her name is Juliet Herman and she's from New York and she is the CEO of Fit Out Academy and she helps in the transformation of leaders and teams in organizations and she has a great career. Let's talk to her and find out more about how she began her journey as well as what leadership is all about and how leaders need to be. And she gives us this wonderful strategy she has created, which she calls the 3 E's. We learned from her. It's called embrace, engage, and evolve. So welcome to the show, Juliet.
Thank you so much. One of my fondest memories of you is when the first time I knew I was going to like you because someone pronounced your name. I don't even know how they pronounced it wrong. It was like Jahnavi or something. Yes. And I love the way you lead because you very confidently, quickly, and kindly corrected. So that was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for remembering. And I think you're the perfect leader because a leader takes care of even the small little things, and that's where the difference happens, so there's a lot of things that we can learn from Juliet, and I've been a follower of her on LinkedIn, and that's how we got connected, Juliet. And so every post she does and everything she shares from her heart. She gives freely, and there is so much to learn from her experience as well as the wisdom nuggets. And so let's get to the nitty gritties. I'm really very happy to have you.
Action even. All the details, isn't it?
Yeah. So how did this journey begin? You have been consulting for big companies, Fortune 500 companies, where you have consulted and you have built the teams as well as the leaders there. And you say that when people just see the dots and the bunch of dots, you see how you can connect those dots as well as you, in fact, creatively connect the dots. You are like, you can design the shapes from the, so you're a builder. So what do you mean by that, exactly?
Thank you. I'm glad you like my creative writing. I just mean it because when you look at something, people always say that 3,000-foot view or whatever it may be. It really consists of seeing all of those different dots, what the different actions are, who the different players are, who is on your team, who isn't on your team, what are the different pieces that you need resolved, but overall, what is the issue that you're looking to solve? So when you are creating a vision, what is your big vision? And then from there, because that vision is solving a problem or creating something that's never been done. And to me, that's always excited me. It is always figuring out what has either never been done or what has been done and needs to go to the next level. So that's what I mean by connecting the dots. It's finding all of those pieces. It's inventing pieces when you need to. And then creating strategies such that you can get to that vision. And that's what a builder does. A builder lays out the foundation, but before they lay out the foundation, they need to figure out, well, is this the right place to lay my foundation, which is the vision?
Wow, absolutely fantastic. Because a lot of us get into strategies and we get into that too much from the head. And we forget to connect those tiny dots. As you said, it's about building a strategy, seeing what has been not done, like when you said what hasn't been done. Like there are great sayings, when you keep doing the same thing, you get the same result, right? And so you need to find out when you are innovative, that's when you do this. And leaders, they tend to get, like because of the stress and then there's so many decisions to be made. So how does your role, fit into that? Is it like you coach them or you just give them the framework and they work on that? How does it work for the leaders?
That's a great question. So it depends on their needs. I look at every company, every individual. So I work with leaders and teams and entrepreneurs. And I look at their individual situation. I'm a little bit different in that I don't have a standard package. Yes, I have an offering. Of course I do. We all do. There are skills, there are strengths. there's an area where I can help people. So that's strategy, marketing, it's content, it's analysis. But within that, I really like to meet with the people that I'm working with or person that I'm working with and figure out what they need. So it's really a combination of consulting and coaching. I've heard people refer to it as coach-sultant. I didn't make up that term, but I love it. And what that means is that a consultant is someone who comes in, meets with the team, analyzes the what the needs are, really does a deep dive and figures out what the actual problem is, not the symptoms, because you always want to solve to the root and solve the problems, and then creates a strategy and tells the leader and team and entrepreneur what to do. So you are pushing that onto them. But then if you think about a coaching experience, that's really pulling out what they need. So working collaboratively with the other person or leader or team to figure out what they need, but it's a joint effort. And that's why you're pulling the answers out of them. So it's a combination of the two.
Yeah, very well said. I mean, this is like you are pushing them to do things, whereas there, you're pulling the person when it's a coaching assignment. It's completely different. They have to be coachable, whereas in consulting, they're giving you the power to push them ahead into whatever the vision they are trying to create. And it's a co-creation between you and the team, right? And so when you are talking about, I saw, I was doing some research on the internet and I saw your work. You work with so many organizations. And so when you really work with these people, what kind of problems are there? Basically, what is it? Is it because of the attitude, or when you say behavioral consulting, what kind of behaviors you come across, and what do they really need to do to change those behaviors?
Sure. Before I go into that, I just want to applaud you because I love that you said they need to be coachable. I think whenever we're working with anyone, any team, even though you are, when you're consulting, even though you are pushing the strategy onto them, everyone needs to be receptive. So regardless, you could be the most brilliant strategist and have come up with the next great invention or something that will transform the company and move them to the next level. If they are receptive, then it can't work. Because what we do is even if we're executing, we are still dependent upon other people to help us, even in execution. So being receptive and open is very, very important. And I'm sorry to talk so much. What was the other yes, I'm sorry.
No, I was, I think even I missed that now. So it happens, it happens. Yeah. I completely am with you on that coachable thing, Juliet, because unless you can take the horse to the water, but the horse has to drink, that's very important.
Absolutely.
And being a coach myself, I know that a lot, I face those issues. What I was asking you was, so when you do these kinds of, you do these assignments in the organizations, what type of leadership roles? I mean, what kind of problems are there basically,
Sure. I actually remember your original question now too. So you asked about using behavioral consulting. So then I'll go to your second point. So when you use behavioral consulting, what that is, in an organization, it's comprised of people. So I know a lot of businesses, they focus on financial capital. That's important. Don't get me wrong. It genuinely is important. However, what I'm seeing is a trend starting, not with every company, but it's more prevalent, that you focus on the individual. Some people call it humans first. So you put humans first. And when you do that, you actually look at the team members as individuals, the leaders as individuals, and you figure out what their behaviors are. Behaviors are something that happens to us, that develops within us by the time we're 5 typically, so very early childhood, and it is life lasting. That is who we are at our source. And then you combine that with your skills and your passion. And when you have all of those 3 pieces together, then you're really doing behavioral consulting, because those innate behaviors are our superpowers. So say, for example, you're incredibly organized. Well, that's great, because you could look at a situation that is in chaos and very quickly come to an organized standpoint. However, conversely, it can become your kryptonite when you are in a situation that is so disorganized that or chaotic that no matter what you do initially, it doesn't seem to be impacted by what you're doing, and you could quickly become unraveled. So that's a distinction, that when a good leader understands the unique behaviors and combined with skills and passions and strengths of each individual team member, they're able to assign roles to them or customize roles and tasks to them such that the entire team benefits and synergy is improved, because then you're actually marrying the complementary skills of all of the members.
Wonderful. So this is something like, nowadays we have this, as you said, the human first, and then the other intelligences like artificial intelligence or whatever it is. So it is a great help to leaders when there is an outside element, a consultant who comes and actually starts pushing these things which are otherwise become just conceptual, and people tend to get frayed and they don't have these the bandwidth to actually implement all those policies that they have in place. So what are the typical problems that you said, like these behaviors? Each one is unique, right? Each person is unique, and there is nothing like, and as you said, they are all behaviors which have come right from the age 5. And so how do you, one is, there are two questions I want to ask you. One is, when the behaviors are so very, they go to the root level when you're 5, and then how do you reprogram those? Do you try to reprogram that behavior? And if you do that, are people, is it a tricky job? Because there are a lot of people who wouldn't be comfortable, going back to their childhood and trying to figure out why this happened or what happened to them. And there are people maybe like me who'd always be open to getting, this kind of, I want to grow as a person.
Yeah. Yes.
And nowadays the trend is such that, people want to really grow, it's like the consciousness is increasing in people.
Yeah.
And it's very human centric. Organizations are becoming human centric. But having said that, yet, there is a lot of resistance as a human being. We feel we are all right. We don't want any other intervention, especially coming from a consultant. So can you tell me, how do you do this and how do you help an individual?
So that's a great question. So there are two different pieces. One is when you're working with people who are open to growth and really want to dig deep. You're right. You can go back to childhood or whatever their earliest memory is. Because what we find is, at the end of the day, we're all people. We can be as resistant as we want to change as we can. In fact, and that will cause us distress. It will harm us in our relationships, in our lives, as well as at work. It will skew the way that we behave towards others. You could place blame on them. We could say that I'm not responsible for that. That was your fault. So there are many different ways that throughout our lives, by not addressing these behaviors, that we are doing ourselves a disservice. So the way, yes, the brain can be rewired. It absolutely can be rewired. Now, with that said, it's not as easy as getting a technician in, someone from IT and some switches, and voila, I'm replacing a motorboard. But in actuality, when you work with a good coach and someone who's focused on mindfulness, you are able to rewire the brain. It takes time, and you need to really address it piece by piece. Because think about it, you have put that in there, that's been in there for, let's say, 30 years, 40 years. 50, 60, whatever that number is, it's been in there for most of your life. So it's not going to come out overnight. I don't care how great you think you are. I don't care how diligently you work on it, which is why I firmly believe in getting someone else to help you with that, someone who's experienced, because number one, they're an unbiased third party that is solely working with you to help you. No other hidden agenda, just someone who really wants to help you. But then regarding businesses, I don't necessarily go in with that approach. That is something I can offer. However, what I look at is the types of problems they're encountering. Some really common problems are employee turnover, lower productivity, that the bottom line is rapidly decreasing, costs are rising, there are a myriad of problems that could come about from that. So there are many different ways to resolve it. So by discovering the uniqueness of the offering, of what the actual company is offering, the product and service, as well as the uniqueness of the team, because remember, everything I do is underpinned by the people as well. So how engaged are the employees? How good is your customer service? Are you solely a transactional business, or are you a business that is involved in building relationships? When you analyze all of this, then you really can get to the root of the problem and understand what the actual problem is. So if you have high turnover, why do you have high turnover? Is it because you are pushing the employees so hard and treating them like robots? Are you perhaps ignoring the prevailing market conditions and expecting your team to make up for the fact that 10 new competitors came in? Perhaps your product or service is antiquated by now, and you need to work with the team to innovate something new, or at least come up with a 2.0 version, the next version of your product. These are all things that I come in that I do with my companies that I work with. But also sometimes you find that the leader had a great leadership style that worked for 20 years, and now this staff is younger. Maybe you have a bunch of millennials that can't relate to a baby boomer. Or someone who's been in place, because that person who's been in place may want to lead with, when they say, why are we doing it this way, and questioning it, which is a good question, they may say, you know what, because it's worked, I have all this experience. So it's really coming in and figuring out how the team can work together. Those are the kinds of issues that I help to resolve.
Yes, yes. So it's not just one thing, as you said, it starts with behavioral, but then the behaviors are triggered. The triggers are very different. It could be, as you said, the organizational head could be someone they could not relate to, or there is a lot of pressure for high performance without innovation, where people don't get inspired and motivated. Or it could be even simple things like, as you said, the people, there is a kind of coherence is missing between the teams, or also you spoke about some things like people may not realize that productivity is the only thing, and make it very transactional. It needs to be transformational. The leadership has to be transformational, where the people feel inspired and motivated. So can you talk a bit more about this subject, because it's very important, unless and until the leader is inspiring them, the team doesn't, perform well. So how can the leader really, switch over from being transactional to transformational? And is it that the onus of all the things is only on the leader, or also the teams, right? I mean, you cannot just say that it's, unless I am inspired by the leader, I can put in my best. So what is the best balance? How do both of them balance?
Well, that's a great question. So there are times, by the way, where transactional leadership is necessary. I'm much more in favor of transformational leadership versus transactional. However, if you're in a fast food restaurant and you are flipping burgers, you need to be reactive, which is the definition of transactional. It is living in the present moment. It is reacting in the situation and being in that manner. However, you're in an industry that is visionary, that is future focused, where you can be proactive, where you can create and innovate new solutions. That would be transformational leadership. And I firmly believe that most companies would benefit from that. But also, one thing you mentioned, the onus, is it solely on the leaders ahead? No, because in my mind, a good leader leads from within. Now, what I mean by that is a leader should always be looking to earn trust. That's one of, I created the 6 pillars of transformation, and one of them is trust and leadership. Because a leader, just because they're a leader, does not deserve the title of trust. The leader needs to earn it, and the way the leader earns it is by empowering the team, understanding the team, understanding how the team functions, who the individuals are in the team, and the leader is responsible for putting together a diverse team. I'm a big believer in diversity. If you have a homogenous team, you're going to have a stable team at some point. At some point, they will they may even get to a good result. They may be here, but if you want to move them here, you need to introduce new ideas. And the only way to do that is to have people who have diverse thinking. So if you have a whole team of yes players who say yes to the ideas, eventually it will dry up and your results will not go any further. So I believe that is another way the leader is responsible for introducing the diverse people, diverse ideas into the team members, but the leader also needs to work with the team. So another one of my pillars is united vision. When you have united vision, that means that not only is the leader working towards the vision, but the team is. And in order for the team to work towards the vision, you can't just tell them what the vision is. You need to allow them to buy into it. So these are all ways that a leader leads well. And then when you're doing all of this, when you have united vision, when you have trust in leadership, then you work towards creating genuine team synergy, which is another pillar. So these are all very important aspects in order to transform from an effective team to a high-performing team.
Yeah, very well said. And in fact, I was going through your fit out, your academy. I mean, your company name, organization is Fit Out. So the acronym Fit Out means freedom of expression. It starts with freedom of expression. Then you have intuitive action. So when freedom of expression, does it mean that if I get an idea and if I am having something to share, I just walk in and share it with the team if I'm one of the team players, or is it like something like I need to have a kind of, there has to be a system put behind that. So how does this really work in organizations that you consult with?
That's a really good question. So freedom of expression has a couple of different meanings combined. So one is absolutely feeling empowered to participate, to contribute to the team, and to share your idea. But accept that most of your ideas probably will not be enacted on. However, it's important that each team member feels seen, heard, and understood. And that's how I want to express it. Also, the more you encourage that as a leader, the more innovative ideas you're going to have. And so there may be 10 ideas thrown out, but one probably will have a higher possibility of being the golden idea because you encouraged everyone to share freely. Also, freedom of expression is simply being yourself. So what that means is, it's probably pretty obvious. I am very high energy. This is truthfully me at 50%. So what I is that my energy is very high. And in a business setting, I can't be throwing my hands in the air and saying wahoo. That's saved from my personal life. But in a business setting, I've learned to modulate my tone. I'm not changing who I am. I am just being appropriate to the situation. So I'm not advocating that anyone should ever hide who you are. You need to bring yourself to work every day. However, mindful of who you're with, be mindful of the situation. If you are with a team and you are discussing a very serious issue, you cannot be all over the place talking about your social life. That is absolutely inappropriate.
Yes.
So save that for when it is appropriate. So again, I just want to emphasize, I'm never advocating to not be yourself. Just be the aspects of yourself that are appropriate to the situation. So I'm a very smiley person. If we're talking about something very serious and I'm smiling, that is really insensitive and inappropriate. So make sure that you are, doing attentive listening, which is paying attention to the other members or whoever you're speaking with.
Yes. That I agree totally 100% with you. I'm with you, because unless and until a person is given the freedom to express completely, whether, as you said, whether they are really put into implementation, that's a different thing. But then when you encourage people to actually express and be their own self, and as you said, maybe, tone down and then be, appropriate to the situation, that's when the people feel comfortable. And I think that's when the trust develops, right? And that there is, and how does this trust, beyond the freedom of expression, you also talked about team synergy and trust, see, it's a trust is a very, very delicate thing. And it's nothing like, you don't, it doesn't come from outside. You have to put it in, like, you have to trust person. So, where does the beginning point of trust, as you said, the leader has to actually, empower, but then these people are also, involved in that, so it's a very delicate balance, can you just throw light on that, how does trust develop?
So although my my
Yeah,
sixth pillar is trust and
yeah,
leadership,
yeah.
it actually works both ways. So by empowering the team, by delegating to the team, you are actually showing them that you trust them. So the leader actually needs to extend trust to the team in order to earn trust. So that's how it works both ways. So basically, you have a trust circle. You have the team feeling trusted. They then will not only trust the leader, but they learn through the leader being a great role model that they need to trust their teammates. Because there will be times that although there may be a team where everyone has individual tasks that they're assigned to, perhaps they need to work together, or perhaps one of the tasks is just too big for one person, or the other person on the team has aspects of that task, so they need to collaborate. So you need to trust your team members as well.
So the leader starts, extending the trust, and then the team members imbibe that feeling of trust, and then they give it back. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and then it's like a circle, it's a vibe which gets into that circle. It builds that energy of trust.
Absolutely.
So
I
yeah,
love that. Energy of trust. That's fabulous.
energy of trust, yeah, synergy. And you said team synergy. I would say energy of trust.
Yes.
So can you talk about, intuitive action? What do you mean by intuitive action? I've heard of actions, and especially the typical consultants or the typical consulting programs are where, you come from the head, people, though they talk of intuition, but in the common parlance, yet it is to be accepted, if I have an intuition and then I just go and take some action based on that, will that be welcomed by the team? And so can you talk about that?
That I'm so glad you brought that up. So regarding intuition, it's something that I found some business people are fearful of, meaning they think it's too woo-woo. I mean, it's just not something that you use. So I always say, well, intuition is actually business instinct. It's your gut instinct. That's not woo-woo. We all know that happens. So don't use the word intuition if you're not comfortable with it. Just phrase it as gut instinct. Call it business savvy, whatever you like. But that is what it is. And the reason it's named that is because that's where those feelings come from. They literally, physically come from your gut. And so when you listen to your gut, you are making decisions based on your experience, based on just your knowing, what you really know to be true, despite any noise from the outside. You know that this is true. And so that's what intuitive action is. It means to take inspired action that is inspired by your intuition, but also to make it targeted. And the reason I throw in targeted is because it needs to be targeted towards the goal that you have, towards the problem that you're trying to resolve, towards your vision, all of those pieces. That's what it means to be targeted. But again, when you use your intuition, there are times when you solely take intuitive action. Those times would be when you need to be reactive. You don't have time. If you look at it, originally from prehistoric times, intuition was developed as a way to keep us safe. It was a way to keep us safe in the caves, to know when we could or could not go outside, and to always be on the lookout because we could be killed at any moment from a predator. Now, for most people, fortunately, we are much safer, and that is not the case. However, that intuition still has tremendous value. So when we take it out of survival mode and we move it into what I call thriving mode, then it can serve us in business as well as in our lives, because we are then taking that intuition and saying, okay, do we need to react to this or do we need to respond? And when we need to respond, that is when we take time to reflect and we combine that intuition with data. We actually combined it with facts and figures. So then what we are delivering, the decisions we're making, are much more grounded in both facts as well as business savvy intuition. And they are elevated decisions that could lead us to the next level.
Yeah. So you have actually, this is something I think your whole model about fit out is such a beautiful piece, because it actually takes you away from the normal type of a leadership where people just have goals and then they have these outcomes and they keep working on that. Here you are actually taking the leader or the team player into a kind of a energy, build that energy, and then you are making them go inward, reflect. And for that, you need to have this kind of, and intuition has been I would say you have given it a new dimension and a new look to that. It's no more that people consider intuition as a flash or some kind of a premonition. It's not that, but you beautifully put it as, it's like how we had the fear in the prehistoric times and it has always saved us. So fear also has a positive side of it. And like right now you're saying, you need to use it strategically and take the help of data as well. I mean, we are not doing a kind of it's not throwing the dart in the dark, but we are actually taking away the wisdom from our past, whatever experiences we had. And also, we have a system, I think, inbuilt, which tells us at that moment. That's the reason why I created Story to Satori. Satori is the moment where you are in that reality, where you're touch basing your reality, and that is giving you the inspiration as well as the wisdom nuggets. You're intuitively connected to your deeper self, and you're not in those stories anymore about the fears or any kind of a threat. So this was beautifully, you have done this whole thing, and that's where the trust builds and then the united vision happens. So I wanted you to talk about, when you're doing these kinds of consulting, do you also build the brand and you help them with the product marketing of the products as well as redesigning the way they are branding themselves? And yeah, can you talk about that?
Sure. So I'm a classic. So I know nowadays, especially in social media, everyone does brand.
Yes.
Well, it's a different kind of branding. That's personal branding, which is very, in my mind, can be, I shouldn't say very, it can be quite different from traditional branding. Traditional branding, I'm a classically trained marketer. So I grew up in consumer packaged goods. So I worked for Kraft, all in marketing. I worked for Kraft, Playtex, and L'Oreal. I did some consultative work for Procter & Gamble as well. So I've worked for really, really, really huge brands and big companies where, everything from offline as well as online. And the one thing I found is when you are building a brand, it is very important to look at the brand as a personality. A brand, because that is what classical marketers do. So when you need to define what the brand is. What problem are you trying to solve with that brand? Then when you figure that out, what is the brand essence? What is the personality? Is the brand something that is comforting to you, that when you use the brand, you will then feel soothed and comforted? Or is it something that will wake you up and energize you? And when you figure out what the essence is, in other words, what the persona is, again, treating it like a person, they really can figure out who your customer avatar is and be targeted and intentional in all of your marketing, in all of your efforts, your marketing online, your marketing offline, and tie all of those pieces together. And that to me is something that brands nowadays They realized the importance of online marketing. They realized the importance of tying in with influencers. The one thing that I truthfully find a little bit disappointing is that I'm sure we've all seen this. There are influencers who have been caught on video saying that they never use those brands. They never use those products that they are promoting. And to me, that is so disheartening, because even if you're getting a lot of sales in the long run, what is your business about? Because then your business solely becomes a financial play. You are solely forgetting about the whole humans first. You are forgetting about what is important. Taking care of the internal staff, what I call the internal customers, your internal employees, your internal customers, as well as the external customers. Are you really serving them if they're just buying it because, Jane Smith, a big influencer, suddenly wore that jacket or whatever it is, used the product or showed it in a video? What you're going to have is short-term growth. You're going to see a massive, massive spike, but is it sustainable? So if you really want to do sophisticated branding and you want your brand to do well in the long run, you need to do things that are sustainable. And influencer marketing, it can definitely impact you, but it's just a piece of your strategy. It cannot be the entirety. And make sure the influencers you're picking, if you do choose to do that, or if you're posting on social media, make sure you are in the place where your customers live, and make sure that you are communicating in such a way that you're not just going to get attention, but you're actually going to get engagement. And that is the way that you get sales, not solely from people going, "Oh, I like that," because everyone else did. They won't buy. They will not convert.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree with what you said, that it's very important to identify your customer avatar, as you said, and that only happens when you are internalizing and looking at the product not just as something which needs to be sold, but what problem is it solving and how am I actually making a difference in the life of my consumer or the customer. And that's a very human-centric approach, whereas in the nowadays we have the influencer marketing. I don't know where it's heading to, and probably it may be a short-lived one as well, because when people come to know that this is fake, and then they stop buying, right? People will stop buying into these kinds of quick gimmicks. So when you are doing these kinds of branding and you have the experiences in so many companies, you have actually branded the products and you help those customers and they have given you such good reviews in the, for your work. So can you just share, where there was a problem and, how it was solved, or like it could not be resolved, or something that, some challenges you found in that, so that a lot of people, viewers here, they really don't have the real picture about branding, and people are just going about quickly, trying to, everybody becomes a brand strategist overnight, and then they're talking about, I think they're mixing up the personal branding and, as you rightly said. So can you just talk and give an example so that my viewers would benefit from that?
Sure. So I was working with a food product, and what we noticed is that there was a huge trend towards portability. Consumers wanted to consume the product on the go. However, the product was not really portable. So it was really a matter of looking at the brand and how can we do an extension? How can we take the essence of the brand, yet come up with a product that would be portable, that would meet the needs of our customers? Because again, you always want to work towards the customers. And it was really a matter of coming up with a product that was portable. We created a cup to go. It was self-heating. You poured some water in, you left it for a minute. We had a special lid. I mean, it was a phenomenal product, and it did incredibly well because it met the needs of a customer. I'm going to give you a completely different example. If you look at a product that is distributed online, I was working with a customer, solely distributed their product online, and they wanted to increase their sales. So they came to, another thing, I've done a ton of public relations, over 20 years of public relations in my career. And they came to me and they said, "We want you to get us on TV." And I said, "Well, Firstly, if anyone knows anything about public relations, number one, the person you're working with has to have good relationships with media. But I don't care how good the relationships are that you have with the media. Everyone will get bumped for the latest news of the day. It will happen no matter who you are, no matter how famous you are, it will get bumped. And you need to be prepared for that. So that's number one. Number two, you also need to understand no matter how good your relationship is with the media, that may not, they may have covered so much of that brand recently that they're tired of it. They don't want to wear out their customers, so their viewers. So literally, you may need to wait. So there are lots of elements you need to take into account, but also your brand may not be set up such that that the journalists are even interested in your brand. So I was working with a company. They did have physical product. However, they marketed it both to consumers as well as for industrial use. And when I looked, they literally could not get publicity. They had almost no publicity whatsoever. It was so small. It was like a one trade journal in a local town. And I was looking at their problem. How could they expand their reach? Because really the problem was their sales were being impacted. From a consumer standpoint, they had almost no consumer sales. Everyone looked at this from an industrial standpoint. So I did a thorough analysis, and one of the things that I found was causing the issue. Their website was really only set up for industrial customers. And it was a really rudimentary website. It was so unsophisticated. And so I really came in, I completely redesigned their website. I created an entire marketing campaign to go along with that, because you can't just redesign a website and expect sales. You have to create an entire marketing campaign. And I completely rebranded them, 100% rebranded the product. Then I was able to get them on Fox Business News. So that was a big coup, as well as USA Today and some other big players in the media. And literally from the moment they were on, so USA Today enabled me to help bring in Fox News. Everything works together. I'm very strategic. Everything works together. I knew how to do this in a strategic way. Then once they were on Fox Business News, it broke the internet. Literally, it crashed their website. Their phone lines broke. I mean, everything was jammed. So literally, I know this number is going to sound really high, but this is what happened. They had a 1,000% increase in sales. It was extraordinary. We also came up with a promotion like a BOGO and a discounted on if you buy volume. But it really, literally 1,000% increase in sales. And it had the knock-on effect. It lasted. So we used that in a campaign. So it really had a tremendous capability to help them. So again, that's what I mean with sophisticated branding. There's not just one thing you do, it's everything that you do. And have a campaign that is strategic, where all of the pieces play like a relay race. Every piece ties into the other one.
Yeah, that's so important, right? I mean, it's not just one thing you do, whereas, as you rightly said, you need to connect the dots and create that design and give it a shape. When you said that's so important, it has to actually not just be outcome based, but at the same time, you need to be knowing where you are progressing, and that's what you're doing. So wonderful, wonderful to hear that. So I want you, please go ahead.
There's one thing I just want to bring up, because you said outcome.
Sure.
So one of the other pillars, my fourth pillar, is outcome focused. So to your point, we started with their outcome. The outcome that they sought was higher sales and to have a presence, a significant presence in the consumer market. So to not just be thought of as an industrial product. So it's actually expanding their brand. And so we actually were outcome focused, and then we were able to create the strategy. So I actually am a firm believer in being outcome focused, but don't be so outcome focused that you're forgetting about the details. Because you need to not just be outcome focused, but take that knowledge of what your goal is that you want to achieve, and then create a strategic roadmap based on that.
Yeah, there has to be that outcome focus. But then, as you said, when you're taking the actions, you need to be present only on that, I mean, not just all the time get stressed about the outcomes. And Yeah. So can you talk about the three E's now? You have
Yeah.
created, that's the kind of, is it the foundation on which these pillars
Exactly.
stand? That's
Yeah.
the foundation for you.
Yes.
So the engage, empower, and embrace,
It's actually
right?
embrace, engage,
Evolve, evolve,
evolve.
evolve. Yeah,
So
yeah.
threes came about. It's really, I've got to say thank you. Being on LinkedIn has been an incredible growth experience for me from shaping my business as an
Yes,
entrepreneur. I
yes, of course.
actually have been doing the three E's my entire career,
Mm,
long before I even knew much about strategy.
mm,
It's just the way my brain works. I've always been strategic without even knowing that I was being strategic. It's in hindsight, I understood. So it's literally the way I've always done business is
mm,
I start with solving the problem, then taking action based on that, and then I move to a certain level and I've evolved, but I never rest on it. I keep going on. It's a continuous cycle. So I've
mm,
always been doing it that way. But once I came on LinkedIn, I
mm,
literally decided that I wanted to spread awareness of the way that the foundation of my business, which is this strategy. And so I came up with the name literally the day that I recorded my very first video. So all I did was put a name around it, but it was the same. It was still the
yeah.
same strategy that I've always used. So the first step in my 3E strategy is embrace. What I mean by that is
Mm,
to understand what the problem is, to really do a deep dive. Don't just look at the symptoms. Most people, unfortunately, they look superficially. They look at the symptoms. If you look at an iceberg, I did a whole article on this. If you look at an iceberg, there's only 10% at the surface.
yeah.
The rest of it, the root, there's 90% below that. And that root is where the problem is. That's what you want to get to. But in order to do that, you need to play the game of whys. So there are 5 whys typically. I call it being like a toddler. So you just keep
Okay,
going, why? So you
okay.
ask why each
Mm,
time, and each time you ask why, you are getting further
deeper.
and further
Yeah,
down to the root. Exactly. And
yeah.
so once you have all of that information, you are now informed. You actually know now, have a better understanding what the
Mm,
problem is.
mm,
Then, based on that,
mm,
you can
mm,
move on to engage. When you get to engage, that's where you take inspired and targeted action. It is
mm,
inspired by the embrace stage, inspired by the problem,
mm,
and you take targeted steps towards your outcome, towards your goal that you want to achieve.
mm,
So that's what the second stage is, but also you want to make sure that you are taking micro steps.
mm,
So make sure that there are micro steps that are achievable. And the reason you want to do this is you need to continue seeing progress. And also, it's a way, if what you're doing is not working, you can react,
You can.
you can
Yes,
respond very quickly, be
yes,
agile,
yeah,
and tweak your strategy appropriately.
yeah.
And want to have associated deadlines. So make SMART goals. So make
Mm,
mini SMART goals. So
mm,
every step has SMART goals attached. And
yes.
then when all of that is done, you then move into evolve. When you're in the evolve stage, that means you have purposeful and profitable growth. And
Mm,
in that stage, though, again, typically it gets you to here,
mm,
and you keep moving up that mountain, move to the next peak. At the next peak, you're going to set a new goal, a new outcome, and then
mm.
you'll go right back to the beginning, embrace, and it's that continuous cycle. So the 3 E's is actually a cycle.
Wow. Have you planned to write a book, or have you already written a book? What is it like on this?
I must confess, I need to, my goal is by September to have a book written.
I think you must make one resolution in this
Yes.
podcast, because this is so much, I've been interacting with you on LinkedIn, and we keep reading and sharing. We also post on your post. But this thing is such a beautifully brought out right from your younger days. And now you're actually giving out to the people, and then you're gifting it. So I think it will be a very good read. People can, the millennials can actually imbibe a lot from this book. So
Thank
this beautiful concept of three E's, embracing the problem, and then actually, after embracing, what do? You engage and then get into actions, take actions and inspired actions. not just any action, and then finally evolve. And that is the time when you make profitable growth. It's not something like you can't make short, you can't have shortcuts to the success.
Yes.
It's a process, and it needs time, and there is a system, and everything has got certain foundations to be laid, and then the pillars have to become strong. And there is a complete, a picture in front of me where the Fit Out Academy. So can you talk about why not fit in and fit out? It's not just, I'm not talking about this thing, but why do you keep saying, why shouldn't we fit in? Why should we fit out,
So thank you for bringing that up. So my tagline for my business is don't fit in, fit out.
Don't fit in, don't fit out. Yeah.
Yes. And the reason I came up with that is I realize, we're all so wise in hindsight. But I invite everyone to analyze. You need to do an analysis to really understand who you are. It doesn't matter what other people tell us, because most of us in life and in business, on some level, are living based on what we're prescribed, what we are told by our families, by the influencers around us, by society. Yes. We want to fit in with societal norms. We want to conform. And in actuality, when we fit out, that's when we come alive. Because we were born to be different. We literally were born to be different. Yes. And when we understand what that difference is, it's like this fitting in. It's this beautiful puzzle piece that we have always been, and we're able to solve that puzzle. Yeah. And so I realized that my whole life, whether in business, when I experienced success, I never fit in. Even though when the team looked up to me, or I was on a team and I was well liked, I never felt like I fit in, and I kept it to myself. And then in my personal life, I can think of times when I was surrounded by tons of friends, and they all said, "Oh, you're just like us." And inside I thought, no, I'm not. I don't feel like I am. I'm flattered you think that. But inside I would keep it to myself. I really don't feel that way. And I thought, what's wrong with me? Why do I never feel like I fit in? And then it dawned on me that we were born to fit out. Yes. And when we understand that, it's like this huge anvil that is lifted off your shoulders. And it means that you are able to be yourself wherever you go. I call it living who you are. And so at work, you're able to bring yourself to work. Not a work persona, not what everyone is on the team, because if you do that, you are on an assembly line. You're just a cog in the wheel. But when you know who you are able to make a difference. You are able to make an impact. And that's what it means to fit out. It means that you work with your leader. You work with your team to say, this is who I am. These are my innate behaviors that were formed by the time I was 5. These are my strengths. These are my skills. This is what I bring to the team. This is what I bring to the organization. Let's see how we can make that work. Let's see how we could get to the next level. So when you fit out, it's not a matter of feeling that you are superior. Absolutely not. Let go of your ego and say, this makes me special. And in that specialness, there are other people who are special as well. So let me figure out what makes you special, what makes them special. And let's figure out how we can work together. Because when you work together, that's when you have that incredible team synergy. And my third pillar of transformation, which is team synergy. And that's when you have that wonderful equation of positive synergy, which is 1 + 1 = 10. Because everyone is working with complementary skills, complementary behaviors, and everyone benefits from it. The business benefits from it. And bringing it back to the very beginning when we talked about putting humans first, that is why you should put humans first. Because humans can do that 10 times, way better than any machine ever could.
Absolutely. And as you said, we are all unique, and thank you for bringing that authenticity into your business. And your fit out just means that we need to become our authentic selves. And authenticity is what is really having the power for us to create relationships,
Yes.
And finally, as you said, it's not about having a sense of superiority, but it's actually we are trying to keep our ego aside. We usually mix up, if I fit out, maybe I'm being very proud, or it's not that. It's actually keeping your uniqueness, keeping your authenticity, and yet having synergizing with the team. And as you said, you're looking at other people as also unique and special people having special skills and talents. And this is such a new concept and wonderfully brought out by you, Juliet. And I think we can go on talking, but it's almost nearing an hour. And I'm so thankful. I'm really very thankful for you to be on my show. And just to one parting message, for people watching, and what would you give, from the Fit Out Academy? What is the one message?
The one message is, and I know I already said it, but I'm going to say it again: don't fit in, fit out.
Fit out.
And be
Yeah.
proud of who you are, because
Yes.
you can make, you will, not can, you will make a difference when you realize that. There's an expression I created, which is dream big and dare to succeed. And the other one is I can, I will, I am. And when you combine that, that's who we are. We are here to succeed, and we can do it. We all have that capability. No matter if your team is going through adverse situations, if the market is downturned, no matter what is happening, you can turn that around. Just believe that you can turn it around. Look inside, know who you are, know what you offer, and find other people and how they fit out, and then work together.
Wonderful message, and especially on International Women's Day.
Exactly.
I'm sure the women, I'm just pleading to them that this is the time to fit out and not fit in, and be your unique self. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on my show, and very, very full of gratitude to you. Thank you.
And to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.